Hello, welcome again to our lovely channel where we have these deep conversations about all things branding, positioning, what we're going to cover today, messaging. Here with my lovely co-host Sarah. So Sarah, last week we covered what branding is. Then we went deep on identity after that, and that's the who you are. And this week it's about where you stand, who you're for, and why they, your ideal client, should pick you over everyone else.
Absolutely. This is such, and you and I have gone through this in our coaching experiences and programs we've run over and over. It's such a, I mean, because we talked about it before the show started, like how many different names this thing goes by in general. Positioning statement, solution statement, what else
I
is there?
help
I help
statement.
statement, value
Yeah.
proposition. So there's such a huge plethora of names for it. And in that same vein, I think people get stuck in the wording of things because your solution statement, like you said, it's the differentiator that's going to get you out there. And we've seen people have so much trouble. It's such a simple base. I help X achieve Y, and yet it can be one of the hardest phases in someone launching their business and clarifying way before the branding visuals, which we get to next week. But this is really, to me, I think of it like a Lego piece. It's one of the core foundations, and it really is. As much as people zoom through it sometimes, and a lot of courses, we've talked about this in the past, courses tend to, because they know it can be so tricky for people to land on, tend to really zoom by it and be like, okay, here's how you position it now. Bye. Here, we're off to the fun stuff
Yeah.
again. So I'm
I
excited for this
I
one to really help people try and understand the importance of it, not just for their clients, but for them.
Yeah, and contrary to, what you might think about positioning, no, it's not a yoga position, but it is a position that will occupy in someone else's mind relative to everyone in your space. So I'm a visual person, so I'm like, oh, in our brain we like, oh, okay, I know this person, I know this person, I know this person. And in my mind, I'm positioning everybody
Mhm.
because it helps me differentiate. So my question to you, Sarah, because we like to ask each other questions that our audience might have, is what's the difference between having a niche and being positioned?
Well, your niche is really the who you're speaking to more globally. And I want to say globally, but again, you want to niche down as much as possible. And we'll go into a full episode about that because there's the pros and the cons of people who say you need a niche, you don't need a niche. Your positioning is what you're actually providing for them, right? Like you're going to have your niche, who's the people, and then your solution statement is how how you are the solution to what that niche is searching for as a solution to the exact problem. And that tends to be where I think people get stuck because it doesn't fall under, it's not the same thing. And yet, I don't know how to say this because it's so deep, this conversation, but
Well, look here, may I offer one way
yeah,
to look at another way? I think of it as why somebody would choose you specifically, because niche is who you, like you said, who you serve. Like this is like, I'm a brand strategist or I'm a
exactly. Mindset coach.
fitness
That's where people get,
coach.
there's the
Yeah.
generic mindset coach for
Yeah.
women.
But
Like that
why
says
would someone
nothing.
choose you? And that's where we love the specificity of the positioning. So,
It is because, and
and
I talk about it, and it's kind of off topic a little bit, but quite often I always talk about our reticular activating system because,
mhm,
and that's where the language comes in. Because if you've ever like thought of buying a car or thought of wanting to have a baby, and then you look everywhere and everybody suddenly got it, it's because you've told your brain it's important. And to me,
mhm,
that positioning statement is how are you creating something that is so easy for the person because their brain is scanning. So if they see you online or they hear you at a party, they're like, whoop, my brain knows this is what I want. How am I sitting and hearing that person? Because you're right, it's what you offer to them, but it has to be the solution they're looking for, not just
yeah,
what you do because you could be a menopause coach and I'd be like cool, but unless you're specifically a menopause coach for helping with diet and hormone, which is what my brain is like, hormones looking for in the moment, I probably would just
yeah.
skip over you because you're like, well, it's too generic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think why most entrepreneurs skip it or do it wrong is because they confuse it with describing what they do. So they'll say business coach for women, and that's a description, not a position. And also, it requires you to be willing to not be for everyone.
Mm,
And that's where most people get like a little, like,
yeah.
right?
Scarcity
We've
jumps
seen
in.
that. Right. So, Sarah, have you ever worked with someone or been someone maybe who was good at what they did, but their positioning was fuzzy, like it wasn't very clear, and then like you had a hard time maybe referring people to them because you had a hard time describing what they did, or maybe
Well,
I've seen
absolutely,
that.
and it wouldn't even be. I'm better at the other side of that because when someone has told me clearly what they do, I immediately go, oh, you know what? I know Nicole
Yeah.
who's looking for that. Oh, I know this person. I get excited because we like to share people and promote people in general, not us. I
Yeah.
mean humans as us. But if you just say like, for me, I think of it like a stamp because if you just say it so generically, I'm not going to remember you whatsoever to refer anyone to. And, I'll just jump in. One of the reasons that we're about to launch, and it'll be ongoing, is a 7-day visibility sprint. And it touches a lot on this because we know it is such a crux for the people to really, and then they wonder why is nobody signing up? Why is my post aren't, speaking to people? Why? But if you're just that generic, people don't hear you, they don't remember you. It doesn't make that connection in the brain. So I've met lots of people, I'm sure, who their positioning was terrible, and I couldn't give you an example because I don't remember them. But
Yeah.
those who had a great position, I'm immediately like, oh, like have you ever been scrolling and you see someone and they say something and you right away, you've never seen them before, but the first time you're like, I got to follow you because they spoke directly to the emotion, to the outcome, to how they do it. And that's what we recognize. And that creates that immediate know, like, trust thing. We're like, oh, this person knows what they're talking. Because it also creates a huge amount of validity for somebody. They're like, oh, they get it.
Yeah.
And that creates a trust automatically. Because you only need, I work in sales back in the day, and it was like, know at least 10% more than the person you're talking to, and they will think you're a genius.
Exactly.
What
Yeah,
about
I always
you?
like to. Yeah, and with that metaphor though too, I always say, you don't have to be at the top of the peak of Mount Everest, helping people climb. You just need to be a couple steps ahead of them, helping them get to the peak.
And that's a
Um,
good example too, though, because
yeah.
somebody who's looking for help isn't going to look for someone who's at the top because
No.
it's depressing. It's like, I'm never going to get there. They want someone who's only a few steps ahead
Yeah.
where they can actually reach
Yeah.
the hand and be like, yes,
Yeah.
please help me pull me up.
And once I accepted that for myself, actually, like back when I first started like mentoring and coaching, it put my system at ease. Like I was like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, I don't need to be the full, like we're all learning. But I feel like this is a natural bridge from our last episode on identity because identity is internal and then positioning is the external. So identity says like, I'm the visionary, and positioning is like, I'm the if you watched us, we use code names, which are our methodology of archetypes. So Sarah's the guardian and I'm the visionary. So identity is my like I am a visionary, but positioning says I'm the person here to show you what's possible, you know? So my question for you, Sarah, is can you have a clear identity but weak positioning? And
100%.
what's an example? Give us we have good examples. I know we do. So give us
Yeah.
example.
Well, I mean, like you said, like you can be very clear on, and this is why it's the multi-step in the branding, right? It's not one piece.
Hmm.
Because if it was just, oh, I've got my identity, good, I'm out there. But the ability to then articulate, one of the things that I've found the most is people try and speak to the other side of the bridge when they're trying to say, "Oh, I help you and you're here." And it's not the language that their person is looking for. So, examples of like I could be very clear in, let's go back to my early days. I was a mindset coach. And if someone said, "What'd you do?" That would be what I would say. I'm a mindset coach. And of course, that was very forgettable and it didn't speak to
Hmm.
me. It didn't mindset in what? Was I corporate? Was it leadership? Was it for, personal manifestation? Was it for money? I mean,
Yeah.
mindset branches, like it could be the tree stump, but then goes all to these different things. And so if you just say mindset, I wasn't speaking to be able to connect with, even if that person needed that, without a long drawn out explanation of trying to, gather, which, sometimes people confuse positioning with the elevator pitch, which is not the same.
Mm-mm.
There, you're trying to create a little bit longer conversation. You want to have that. But I would say that, I mean, if I was going to give any, and we have lots of examples from the coaching program we work in, but one doesn't come to my head, so I'm going to use my own. So
Okay.
that's it. It's
Yeah, yeah.
speak to
And it
everybody,
doesn't
so you speak
really,
to no one.
yeah, and it doesn't, no one feels like it's specifically for them.
Yeah.
My example would be, I help spiritually curious women rediscover themselves. That, like, oh my God, if we haven't seen that in various forms 200 times, right? And no offense to those people that use that, because you just don't know what you don't know.
You don't know.
But I have no idea if that's for me. And I usually don't think about rediscovering myself.
No.
So, and I don't know if everyone has the same definition of rediscovering themselves either. So,
And you talk about, because it touches back on, if I look at, let's say, spirituality, when I was at my crux of looking for support to advance myself and grow, that wasn't what I was looking for. It may be what I needed, but I didn't think that's what I was looking for. And that's when we talk about in your positioning, you have to speak to where they're at, not where you're going to take them. Because
mhm.
yes, so much of my growth, my own personal growth has been through manifestation and universal laws, and but if at the crux when I started my journey, someone had said, "This is the route, go this way," I would have been like, "You're a lunatic." Grab my purse, roll my eyes, and run the other way, because I'm like, "No, it's not. I need more like habits, and I need to push hard." Like I had an expectation, and that's where I know a lot of people don't like it, because you say, the old saying, "Give them what they want." Oh, what is that? Oh my God, I'm having a
What they
mind blank.
need,
Yeah,
sell them.
exactly.
Yeah.
Sell them what they want, give them what they need. And it
Mhm.
sounds salesy, but it's true, because otherwise you miss the
Yeah.
people. And that's where your positioning line
Yeah.
really gets to come in, is speaking to what is it they are actually looking for. And you talk about the words. We talk about it all the time in our program, right? When in the Archangels Collective, it's like, what are those words that they're actually, when they're trying to fall asleep, what are they saying? They're not saying, "Oh, I wish I was aligned," right? Like nobody talks like that except for AI.
Yeah.
So don't use that.
I need to delve into my empowerment. Well, I like to always kind of chunk things down for people, or like, steps or three things or whatever. And I think three things need to be true simultaneously for positioning to actually work. So, it needs to be clear, so they need to get it immediately. It needs to
Mhm.
be credible, like people can believe that you can deliver it, right? Like that's where I think that a lot of the coaches now in the space that are using the I help you achieve 10K months or whatever, it's
Oh, I
starting
know.
to not
I
be
call it
credible.
poster talk.
Yeah. And then the third one is it's differentiated. It's not what everyone else is saying. And that's why your example of being a mindset coach, like nowadays you would be lost in the like, thousands of mindset coaches that are over there. So when we talk about like that vague positioning, like I help women step into their power, that's everyone in our space. And it's more of like an emotion, and it's not a market
It's not a
position.
tangible.
So a sharp version, we'll just give you guys an example. We go deeper into this in our collective, but sharp position would sound like I help experienced women entrepreneurs, so experienced women entrepreneurs, not newbies, who keep rebranding, figure out why their visibility isn't working, and fix it at the identity level. So that could be something, for us, like Sarah and I, to be able to position ourselves and say. Because that's like, oh, I understand. Like, is that for me? Am I an experienced woman entrepreneur? And I keep like going through this like identity crisis in my branding, figure out why my visibility isn't working and fix it at the identity level, right? And then that would ripple out into a lot of things for them. But what do you think you see, Sarah, is the most overcrowded positioning in the online business space right now? If you had to pick one.
Funnily enough, our own. niche, right? Like of women entrepreneurs, because there's a huge amount of, first of all, just for volume of women who are
Hmm.
leaving corporate, because kind of like who at that age of life, middle life, that are like, okay, I want to create my own identity. And we see it in the programs we've worked in and coached in. And it's beautiful because, and I think that's why we're so committed to this field, and we've put our own spin on it because they've moved through it. They know, they've lived it, and there's so much value they can bring. But if they stay in that generic melting pot of just using the same words over and over again, even for us as a viewer, if you see 30 people say, like you said, the exact same line, you're working twice as hard to differentiate
Hmm.
yourself, because then it's really based on identity, your character. Like, do people jive with you or not? And maybe they're going to follow you. Money definitely is always a very saturated right now. AI
Hmm.
is crazy saturated right now.
Yeah,
That one is
super.
everybody. Yeah, that one I'm like, I was there in the beginning, and then it turned out I was like, okay, I'm going to pivot back to things like
I know. Now that everyone like we were like yeah, you and I were probably the
we were early adapters.
we were early adapters. We got look, I love AI and it has its plus pros and cons, but now that everyone's so like going all in, it does feel like we're losing a bit of that human element. But we
Mhm.
digress. Let's
But you're
stay
not
on.
digressing. I'm going to pitch, again, part of the reason we
Okay.
created the challenge
Hmm.
was because people will try and do their positioning statement using an AI tool.
Mm,
And I mean, I
yeah.
was in a course once, and some I'm like, tell me your solution statement. They pull out a paper. I'm like, don't read it. Like, you need to
Yeah.
know this. You need to be able to tell
Yeah.
me that it comes
You
from
don't know what you
you.
do.
Yeah, like if you meet someone on the street and they say, "What do you do? What are you going to pull out a piece of paper?" I'm like, "Come." So now
Yeah,
I digress. I
exactly.
want to go back to what you said though, because one of the things I find, because you said credibility, the positioning
Yeah.
statement shows, and it goes back to that concept of Mount Everest. That word can
Hmm.
scare newer entrepreneurs because they're like, "But I don't have."
Hmm.
And you do. If you've moved through it, you do. And so I like to just
Hmm.
preface that, because even when I started, they were like authority and credibility. And even people like, even if you have no experience, and then show all the receipts, you're like, I don't have any receipts yet. So when you're first building out, that can kind of scare people. But really, credibility is just showing that you've moved through it, that there, what is that? I call it the bridge. I
You
like the
have the
symbol
lived
of the bridge.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to preface that.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you for bringing that up because and this might help people because I know there's a lot of newbies that might be watching. And when I began my coaching journey actually in a different niche, it was in the relationship niche. I was certified as a love mentor by Dr. Diana Kirshner, who's like a she wrote these great books and everything, and I just really vibed with her and met her at a conference. But anyways, when after the training, I had to do these enrollment calls and I had some imposter syndrome. Not imposter in the sense that I couldn't help them, but more like I hadn't been doing this coaching
Hmm.
thing. Like I was in the fashion industry, manufacturing yoga clothing before. And she goes, she said something so wonderful to me, and it will stick with me. So I'm sharing it with you guys because again, the lived experience element is so important is she goes, Nicole, you in a healthy, thriving marriage? And at the time, I mean, I am still, but at the time I was like 2 years, 3 years into my relationship, and we were doing a lot of great work together, and we've both done personal development. So I'm like, yeah, I'm in a healthy, thriving marriage. And she goes, well, you're the 1% that they don't know and they haven't probably experienced. So you are that person for them and can help them because you know what it takes to create that because you were
Hmm.
also in not so great relationships, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, I've been there, done that. And that really
Haven't we
stuck
all?
with me. Yeah, got the bill. That really stuck with me because even at the time I didn't see it as that. I thought I had to
Hmm.
have the coaching experience,
A
but I
lot of
had the
people, they chase those. I mean,
yeah.
I have certifications, but I you're 100% right. Like if anyone's watching this and they're like, I just need that one more. No, you don't. You need to get out there with real world experience and validate.
Yeah.
That's why the positioning statement is so important. And the way we've done it, and it's the reason we did the challenge that's coming up. And if whenever you're watching this is an ongoing, is because if you meet someone in the street, we want you to be able to have it be natural, and you're going to play with it. Like if someone doesn't lean in and go, "Ooh, tell me more," or say, "Ooh, I've got somebody," that means, hey, maybe I need to rework it because you're looking for that. What? What do you do? Tell me more. Like that.
Hmm.
We could maybe do a whole episode about this, which I'm sure we will. But it files back into how we get to put that positioning statement together so that we feel credible even more
Yeah,
than, right? Like how do we
yeah,
say it in a way that
yeah,
you're like, I feel confident in it and not using, like you said, the you get 1,000 clients in one day for, without doing
yeah. Oh
anything,
God,
which is
get so
BS.
grossed
Stop
out by
listening to the
that.
BS out there, people.
Yeah. And I want to mention the archetype angle on positioning too, because our arc print, which is the quiz you would take to know your code name, it
Hmm.
connects directly to that. And your archetype shows you how you position, not just the words you use. So, for example, like there's a challenger, there's an oracle, and there's a connector. I'm just going to go through those examples. A challenger would position themselves from a contrast, like they're about what's wrong with the status quo. An oracle positions from like depth and certainty, but be careful, oracles, you tend to get a little poetic. And a connector would position from relationship and belonging. So how that could look like if we had two business coaches. I love this as like I love using examples. So say we have two business coaches and they have the same offer, but they're different archetypes. So they're both working one-to-one with women entrepreneurs who maybe are like stuck and not getting clients, right? So the challenger could, and I'm going to use the challenger and the connector to show how they can solve the same problem, but completely different positioning using their archetype lens. So a challenger would position from languaging that like talks about like most coaches will tell you to post more consistently, but I'm going to tell you something different. The real reason why you're not getting clients has nothing to do with your content schedule. You know already what needs to change. You're just not doing it. So I work with women who are done making excuses and ready to get uncomfortable. So that's very challenger energy because it's like going against what
Again, status
most
quo. Yeah.
coaches. And then the connector would talk about like their shared humanity and warmth. And that language would look like, you know, getting clients shouldn't have to feel like you have to psych yourself up for and give you lots of pep talks. I've been the person refreshing my inbox, wondering if actually anyone actually wants to hire me, and I figured out why it wasn't working. I help women who are great at what they do, but somehow feel invisible online. No strategy overhaul required, just clarity on what's already working and the confidence to actually show it. You see how there's two different energies
Hmm.
there? Same
And you're going
problem.
to call in a different client, right? Your niche, part of that
Exactly.
identity of knowing who you are, because that contrarian, right? The challenger,
Yeah.
the rebel, you're going to call in someone who's like, yeah, I want to, we got to fight the system versus someone who's looking for that safe, kind of like the friendly where they're going to be held and loved, right? So it's so important. I love that
Exactly.
you say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Our
Yeah. The
identity and
woman,
their identity, they got to connect.
exactly. And yeah, Coach A will repel anyone that needs hand holding. Like they're
Hmm.
like they would run from that. But the women who doesn't want hand holding is like super, maybe type AI personality. Type A, they would they wouldn't like the challenger. They would be like, "Oh God, that's so not for me." And neither of those positionings is wrong or anything. It's
Nope.
just it's doing what it's self-selecting the client. So yeah,
Well, it
I
goes
wanted
back
to.
to having a niche ready for it is because, and that's why you want to play with it because in reality, you think you want to reach everybody. You do not want a roster full of clients that you don't jive with. It
Mhm.
makes your life harder. Their results aren't as good. And so marketing, a huge part of marketing, which is all
Yeah,
these parts are in marketing, is repelling those that are not your people. And that's the whole point of
yeah,
niching and speaking in your archetype and in what you're bringing to them in the words that they're resonating with. 100%.
yeah,
Like I know
yeah,
my coaches. I can look back at all my mentors, all my coaches, all the programs I've done, and there's a very strong similarity between them all. Like I don't I like the kind of funny and in your face. And I do tend to go for the rebellious, right? Because I'm very much like, let's change the system. So I don't really want like ooey gooey, even though I can be poetic myself.
yeah,
I don't like receiving that as much, which is funny.
yeah, yeah. I need some kick in the pants myself.
What do
So
you, I'm
we're
going to
all,
ask you though in this one too,
yeah,
because one of
yeah.
the things we talk about a lot that we see people mess up in the positioning is they talk about their framework, which nobody knows.
Oh, like a methodology, a framework.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So when you see it, what do you feel if I'm watching this and I'm trying to create my positioning statement and I had to break
Hmm.
it down in the simplest ways, how would you say to somebody like if you can get these parts of your positioning statement so that
Hmm.
you believe it and speak it, like what would be in that recipe?
Yeah. So, well, the framework or the methodology is like last. Like, I don't need to necessarily know that upfront to choose you to help me, right? I just need to be convinced that you're the right person for me based on who you help and what the problem or the overcome, like what am I going to overcome, right? So everybody has different systems or approaches, and I do like the fact that like when I hear a new approach or system, it gives me like curiosity because I'm like, oh, well, that's a different way I haven't tried before. So I think of the framework as the evidence for my positioning. It's not the
Exactly.
positioning, but it's like the evidence. So, maybe like we could say for ourselves, like we help experienced women out we help experienced women entrepreneurs who keep rebranding, figure out why their visibility isn't working and fix it at the identity level. And our framework is our arc print system. So that would the like end part. We do that through blah 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 blah. But they don't necessarily need to know that like in the
No.
beginning.
And that's
That's
where I
something
think
you
people
can
get
go
stuck,
deeper
right?
into. Yeah.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
get here's how I see it is they talk about the features, which is what the
Hmm.
framework is. Like I work this grand life system.
Yeah.
And if you can't first show me what my outcome is before you're going to show me like how you're like as it's I like the bridge example, right? Your person is here, there's a huge divot and it's the most
Yeah.
common and you're here and there's the bridge. They don't need to know how you built the bridge that it's like,
Yeah.
timber wood and galvanized nails, like those are those little things. They just want to know what is that outcome. Then you can talk about the bridge. Once you've got them, that's why I talk about using the words because I'm like,
Yeah.
here's a bridge to get you. Get me where? Over there. Well, what's over there? Do I know what's the
Yeah.
direction I want to go?
Yeah. Because if I hear your XYZ method, I still don't know if it's for me or why I should care. Like, they great. I'm glad. I mean, look, there's certain methods that people do maybe are aware of, but they still don't know why you're different than another person doing the same method, right?
Well, I think
And
again we talked about it last time too, though, is the
yeah,
problem is the ones with the most money who do the most ads, the big
yeah.
gurus, they do quite often position. That's why I say success leaves clues, but you have to be careful when you're looking at someone. I quite often suggest to people find a mentor or someone you want to mirror that's
Hmm.
maybe a year or two ahead of you and see what they're doing. Or if you do want to follow the gurus, go look back at what they were doing where you are in your business now. Because someone like, I don't want to name them, but the big guys, they'll be like, oh, this process, and people get excited. They already have the fan base. So people
Yeah,
will just gobble what they have. So when people at our level, like that we help, are trying to mirror that, they end up, and I've seen it, they get so confused and they get so flustered and that's why I
yeah,
think we focus on this for this challenge because it's like, listen, if you can get this part, we talked about the identity. That's the first thing. If you can connect to that and then get
yeah,
your positioning,
yeah.
you're going to be unstoppable, man.
Yeah, your positioning is your promise and the framework is your proof. So, most people out there are leading with proof before they've even made the promise. So that's, counterintuitive to this. And I think too, one of the things I've seen is people who go through those certification programs with like some of the big people out there, like let's say rapid transformation therapy. It's a hip, hypnotherapy certification program, and I love the work. But if I were to choose, like they're all getting the same certification, so how can someone position themselves using rapid transformation therapy a
Mhm.
little bit differently than their competitors, right? So yeah, good
Exactly.
point to bring up here. And One thing that I wanted to talk about really quickly, but I don't want to delve on it, is I do see that pricing and positioning, some people have issues with their pricing, like getting people to buy their services or work with them, because weak positioning can force price competition. So if you're sounding like everyone else, then the only differentiator is going to be cost. We're not going to go into any kind of pricing thing in this video, but I do want to help people see that when your position is strong, it's what lets you charge kind of whatever you want in a sense, not because you're
Mhm.
worth it, but because you're the obvious specific choice for a specific person. I've seen some people very specific in their positioning and like doing crazy things, not that to say that I agree with this, but like $10,000 for a 1 hour coaching call because they had results, they had testimonials, they had very specific, like, this is the problem we're going to solve, and I'm the person to help you do it. And they get people to pay that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, wow, like that kind of blows your mind, but it's because of their
Well, I
positioning.
think it goes back to what you said about that credible, right? Like that,
Yeah.
the clarity, if you can get your line done and you're confident in yourself, you're confident in what, even if you haven't actually walked anyone through it, but you're like, I've done it, I know I can, you automatically, people feel safe in someone who has confidence in that credibility. I mean, look, it's going to be a weird example I'm going to give you, but they've talked about like people who like steal in these big, huge stores, how they get away with like they just walk in. There's like no question. They see that they're like, oh, we saw the person. He walked in, took a bathtub and walked out. We just, you know what I mean? But that is that, and it's a goofy example, but that concept, if you can be like credible, like I'm going to get you from here to here so you can, and you're confident in it and you position yourself, people are automatically have this like, oh, I'm safe in her hands. She knows what she's doing. Even without all, like when I started, they're like, put logos. I'm like, oh, logos. What logos? I haven't been on TVs and this. And they're like, well, I don't have logos. And so it
Oh
was
yeah,
really
the
hard to launch because I'm like, I don't have the receipts, as they call it, right?
yeah.
And now, as I've moved through, and one of the exercises was actually looking through my life and going, oh, I actually do have the receipts. I just wasn't looking at it that way. But it's so important. And I'm gonna keep saying the same thing. It's they're all tied together, and that's why we kind of loop around in our conversation because one without the other doesn't work. It has to all go together. And that's why it's
Yeah.
so important that they do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, one thing that I see that's a quick like pulse check on if you are if your position is off is if you post and your content gets like loves and likes and but no, this is exactly me, like, oh my God, get out of my head. you know when I read stuff where people, it's like they're in my head. I'm like, I have it's like I feel this compulsion to be able to like share that this feels like they're speaking directly to me. So when your content isn't really doing that, there's something in the positioning of what you're saying and then what you do and how you help people that is off. That's one red flag I have to
And
share with you guys.
absolutely. And we talked a little bit before we went live here is your positioning isn't about sounding impressive. It's really about
Hmm.
being understood. And if you're stuck in the, how does this make me sound? That's also a red flag that you're looking at it the wrong way
Yeah.
because
For
you
sure.
know what you do and how you're going to get them there. It's how do you organize it and verbalize it in a way that without having to, for them to be an archaeologist, can understand the value you're bringing and the solution you're bringing for them. I think that's why I like the rather than positioning statement, I kind of like the solution statement. Although even there, people get
Hmm.
tripped up because we talked about it. They get tripped up with the niche. They get tripped up with the how as opposed to the what. Like what is on the other side? What is that outcome? And they talk about, as I said, I've seen so many people, and it's like they go on and on about the framework and this, and you know, the posit really it's I help ideal client achieve through is the base, and then you can build on it, right? Like without and so you can, and but if you can get the base of it just crystal clear and play with it. That's why I think it's so important. Part of
Yeah.
our challenge right now is like once you're going to crystallize it, then how do you take it out? I call it on a date, but how do you get it out there? How do you bring it to people? Because in your head, just you and the AI or just you and your piece of paper, it needs to be out in the world and being practiced on through social media, but also through just the people you meet at the grocery store, the this, that. There's so many fun
Yeah.
ways you can take your positioning line and take it and practice it until it becomes, as I said, if you need a piece of paper to read it, you need some more work, guys. There's more work to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Start posting and help and see how it helps you discover your positioning if you're still struggling with that.
Mhm.
And that's you only learn through feedback and and testing. That's the biggest thing I've learned in 25 years of being an entrepreneur is I learned through feedback, I learned through testing, I learned through my missteps as they will. I don't call them failures because they're just, they're I tried and it didn't work, right? It didn't work
Yeah, it's
out. So,
feedback. It's a constant feedback
yeah.
loop. And I
Yeah.
mean, the thing that I have great respect for, if you look at those who are like super out there, if you look behind the scenes and not just their ads and actually listen to their own origin stories or follow them, they quite often, I mean, and the premise of marketing in general is create, get it out there, get feedback, tweak it, adapt it, keep going,
Hmm.
right? It's a constant kind of
Yeah.
rework.
Think of focus groups,
Mhm.
the brand companies are still paying I used to do focus groups when I was like, needed some side cash, and I did quite a few, and it was fun because I wanted that experience too for myself to see like, oh, what are great things that you could be looking for as a business owner to understand about your ideal audience or your potential ideal audience, right? Like, I just found it very fascinating that that still works in the world. So, and that's why too, when you are one piece of gold, I think I'll leave you with, and Sarah, you can drop yours in too. We could share our wisdom when I was when I worked with people, I would make sure to get testimonials or some kind of like, how was the experience? I had questions that I would ask them, and this was before AI came on the scene, so I had to do this myself. I had to synthesize the information. But I wanted to look and see what people said about what they overcame because I can guess at what I'm helping people overcome. But I remember
Mhm.
one client specifically had this whole thing about like perfectionism, and I never thought about perfectionism and burnout, and like it became this new lens I got to see my audience through and create like messaging for my offer based on that
Mhm.
woman. And I had so many more people raise their hand for that than I had a previous like kind of positioned offer. And that was gold for me. And I did it by myself without the use of AI. So I have to pat myself on.
But I think that's, and then again, this could be a whole episode too, because we know so many, we've worked with so many,
Yeah.
and that's it. They try and figure everything out between them and, as I said, some people are paper, so that's cool, piece of paper, or AI,
Yeah.
where you have to take it out into the real world. You have to
Hmm.
validate, and you don't have to be afraid of like, oh, I have to have it all perfect. No, you don't. You want to have your
Yeah.
positioning line so people understand what you do, but you're going to grow it with them as you move through it. And that's the beautiful part. And most, to me, if I see the ones that give up, it's those who never even gave themselves a chance to take it
Yeah.
out and dance with it a little bit out there. Like, if you can
Yeah.
just be like, hey, cool, this is what I think. But like you said, the, one of, if I'm going to leave you with my gold, is if you're, because I don't know, you can do deep research and see. But one of the places, if let's say you're in mindset or someone like growing like that, is go to Amazon, book, like
Yeah,
Audible,
for
and
sure.
read people's feedback like, oh, this helped
Reviews.
me, because you're
Hmm.
gonna get a lot of beautiful words of what they are
Hmm.
using, because you don't want to guess what you think their words are. You need the tangible. So if you're not
Yeah.
yet ready to jump in and do a beta client or whatever you want to do, then at least go get some actual word. And again, I love AI, I use AI, but you have to be really careful trusting only that. Like, we still need humans, because I don't know about you, but and we have this conversation all the time when we do posts. We're like, that I keep telling my AI, it's like, you sound like a poster board. Like, look at it, tell us like this. It doesn't work like this.
Yeah. Oh,
So I love
totally.
using Amazon was one of my first places before I
Yeah.
had testimonials and the clients. I would say, okay, what
Yeah.
are those words
Same
that
here.
they're actually thinking? Because I can guess and I know what my words are, but I don't want to be so egotistical to assume, well, everybody's feeling my word. No, I want to actually have feedback,
Yeah.
validation of. So that's a really cool place because there's so many
Yeah.
books and you can pick your category niche. I mean, any niche you're in,
Yeah.
there's books about it. And
Oh
you can
yeah.
go read the reviews.
I did the same with intuition development when I was mentoring people with that because I was like having a hard time with the tangible. Like,
Hmm.
it's in the spiritual space where it's hard with the tangible.
Yeah.
And I was in my there was a coach that suggested doing that, like someone I read, and she was like, this is what data mine in Amazon. And I was like,
Yeah.
brilliant. And
It is.
exactly.
It's such a great tip because those are real people who, when you go to buy a book, it's because you think that, I mean, outside of, I'm talking about personal development books predominantly, like not a
Yeah,
romance
yeah,
novel,
there.
but
Shelf help.
yeah, because you know that person has gone to that book for a specific outcome. So even just looking at what is the book's positioning of what is it saying they're going to have, right? That's gold. And then reading their feedback, like, oh, this made me feel, which is exactly, well, there's so much gold in those because
Yeah.
it's amazing. So I
Well,
think
Sarah, as as usual, a great time with you. I hope you, our fabulous audience, enjoyed it. And yes, Sarah and I did call each other and decide to wear red today. No, just kidding. We did not. We just love our
we're just in
colors.
tune. We're in tune with each other.
But drop us a comment on what part of this conversation really stood out to you the most. Is there a part that you were like, "Oh my God, that makes sense for me," or "I'm going to try this"? Like we want you to start to look at your positioning and maybe drop in the comments like your reworked version of how you help people and what and the specific, client specific outcome and what are they overcoming or what's on the other side of that bridge that Sarah mentioned for
Yeah.
them. What's waiting for them over there after working with
Absolutely.
you?
That's what I would leave with. Well, one, obviously, if you want to join our collective, we give direct feedback there too with the challenge. But also and I think I'm going to end every episode like this because my driving desire is that if you have a vision and a mission, that you launch it and not get stuck in the weeds of your own stories.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing I can say at the end is the positioning or solution statement. It's more than just a bio blurb. Like it
Yeah.
really is so important. It is the crux. It is the core piece. Again, identity. The visuals, I love the visuals, but and it's important for sure. But these
Yeah.
two, between the identity of who you are and who your client is, and how and what you're actually helping with them, having that clarity. Like if you fix that, the rest then is just plasticine that you're going to get to mold and stuff. But these are your bricks. So give it the time, guys. Don't rush through it. Don't think it's like once and done and that's it forever. You're going to want to take it out. You're going to want to practice it. And if you can get this, this will help you differentiate yourself because it is a crowded ass market out there right now. I mean,
Yes.
it's wild. And most people don't take the time with that. And that's why it's crowded and sounds blah because again, there's a lady, I don't remember her name right now, to be fair, but she popped up out of nowhere on my feed. I'd never heard of her, never seen it. And immediately, boom, like she's in my mind because of how she positioned herself, what she spoke, how she spoke. Like there was no doubt. And I was just like, I want what you got. Like I'm following you. I haven't bought anything from her yet, but I'm much closer, right? I'm in her
You're
warm
warmed
audience now.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Which
warmed
means when
up.
she starts sharing, I might be like, right?
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
consumer as much as I am a coach.
Yeah. All right. Well, good
Okay,
stuff.
guys. Thank
Love
you so
it.
much. Hope you enjoy. Give us feedback. As I said, we're very back and forth. We want to bring you what's of importance and value to you. So if you have any feedback or ideas or want to drop questions, we really would appreciate it. So until next week, we bid you adieu.